This video covers how to create multiple graphs. That is, there are situations in which you may be following more than one behavior for a particular client, and you might want to graph them on the same graph. The other is where you are working with multiple clients, let's say in a group, and you're tracking a particular behavior for each one of them, and you'd like to also plot the progress of each one of them in one graph. So there is a way to do that in SSDforR, and that's by using the abplotm command to plot multiple graphs. First, before we get started, you should have installed obviously R and RStudio. If you haven't done so, go to our video on installing R based on your operating system. There are two different videos. Also, you'll need to install SSDforR, and there's also a video on that, getting started with SSDforR. So to begin with, let's load the package, assuming that you've accomplished successfully installing R and RStudio. The easiest way to do that is to click on Packages in RStudio, and a list of all your packages will come up, and then just click the check mark next to SSDforR. And you can also do this in the console by typing the command require and between parentheses SSDforR, and then enter, and that will also load the package. The next step is to download the basic data example on our website, ssdanalysis.com, and I'm going to open up the website, and this is the first page, the home page, and I'm going to scroll down to basic data example, and I'm going to right click on it, and I'm using a Mac, so it might look different if you're using a PC. If you're using a PC, it might say, save target file to. I'm going to click on the save link file as, and I'm going to save it to my desktop. And now I'm going to click on save, and I'm queried as to whether I want to append .txt. I don't want to do that, so I'm going to click don't append, and it asks if I want to replace it. I already have a copy there. You won't get that message if you haven't installed it previously. So I'm just going to click replace. Okay, now I'm going to minimize that, and we're ready to go. So the first step then to do our charts is to open the file. Click on get CSV, and open close parentheses, and that will open up a dialog to find your file, and here's ssd.csv, and I'm going to click on open, and now it's open, but now I have to attach it. You can see the instructions here. I'm going to type attach and SSD between parentheses and enter. Now it's in memory, and we could work with it. So let's take a look at the variables, list names, and open closed parentheses, and that will give us a alphabetical listing of the different variables. If you want a listing of the variables in order they appear in the file, type names and SSD, and here you have them as they appear in the file. So there are two variables that would be interesting to take a look at. One is cry, that's crying, daily crying in a class, and also yelling inappropriately in the class. So those are two variables on a particular child. So let's begin plotting both of those, and we want to put them on one plot. The first step is that you have to indicate how many plots you're going to work with. So you have to define the number of rows and columns. In this case, I'm going to define 2 rows and 1 column. So I'm going to type plot num, and then the rows, I'm going to do 2 rows and 1 column, and hit enter. That just sets the environment. Now we can look that up in help, and it'll be in alphabetical order. So here's plot num, and it defines it right here. So NR, the first number is number of rows, and the second the number of columns. Let's go. I'm going to click back on plots now. You know, the other thing to think about is the size of your graph window here. Now, if you're going to do a lot of plots, you probably want to make as much space as you can. So you can actually grab the columns. Like if you grab the column to the left, where you see my double arrow, I can drag over and make it wider. I can increase the length by doing the same up here, by getting those that arrow and lifting it up that way. That would make more room for graphs. Alright, so now we're ready to do our plot. The command is actually ab plot m, and then we'll start with our first graph, which is cry, comma pcry. So we're entering the behavior variable and the phase variable. The phase variable has the letter of the phase, A or B, and the behavior variable has the actual amount of times the child was crying. And maybe it'll be helpful to take a look at the help file. So I'm going to click on help as we begin to build this, and then index, and ab plot m is our command, and it defines exactly what each one of the arguments are. And the next argument would be the x label, so we're going to define that as days. And notice we'll define that as days. Notice there's a comma after each one of the arguments, and so I'm going to type between quotation marks days. And the y-axis, I'm just going to put in amount, and then I'm going to put a main title in crying, and I'll hit enter. And there's our first graph with 3 phases, A, and so on, A, B, and B1. Now let's take a look at the 2 variables we used here. So if we type cry, you can see that just ignore these NAs at the end, but you could see these are each observation. So day 1, the child cried once in class, 3 times, 4 times on day 3. And now if you type pcry, you'll see the A's, the B's, and the B1s, right? Okay, so where A is the baseline, B is an intervention, and B1 is a change in the intensity of the intervention. The other suggestion I would make is, in terms of understanding how the files are set up, is to take a look at using Excel files. We have a video on that, and I think that would help clarify any issues you might have about that. Now, once you have the graph set up, you can annotate it. You need to annotate it before you go on to creating this next next chart you want to include, because that chart, the last chart, becomes the active chart. So let's say you want to put in lines, AB lines, to distinguish the different phases. So I'm going to type AB lines, and in between parentheses I'm going to put the cry variable. You need to put the behavior variable there, and I'm going to hit enter, and I'm going to put it somewhere in the gap, and I don't like the way that looks, so I'm going to type no here in terms of accepting it. I don't want it to touch anything. And actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually make it wider so I'll be able to see the gap a little better. And so I'm going to do that again. I'm just going to press the up arrow in the console, and that will repeat the last command. And now I have a perfect line, and I'm going to accept it. And I'm going to put a line in the second phase. So I'm just going to press the arrow up again and hit enter, and I'm going to put it right about here, and that looks good. And if you wanted to, you could also annotate it using text and so forth. You can look at our video on annotating graphs to get more information on annotation. Okay, now let's do our second graph, which will repeat the A, B, plot M, and our variable this time is yelling, and P yelling. And so again, days will be our X label, and our Y label will be amount, and our title would be yelling. And let's hit enter, and there's our second graph. And so we can annotate that also. And so to do that, we'll do AB lines again, and now we have to replace crying with the yelling behavior variable. And here you go. There's our line. If you don't like it, I'd like it to be a little further over, so I'm going to click no, and I'm just going to repeat that and put a little, get a little closer to the middle. Okay, that I like. All right. The next thing you should be aware of is you can export your graph by clicking on export, and if you want to save it you can save it as a PDF or as an image, or to the clipboard by clicking clipboard, and then copy plot, and then you can go into Word or Pages or whatever word processing program you're using, and just paste it into your word processing program. Now I'm going to accept the line, which I forgot to do, and now basically we're set to go. Just to let you know that you can follow us on Twitter at SSDforR, and you could find us on Facebook by searching SSDforR. That concludes the video for today.